Hi guys, today I'm filming a video about this book, I Have No Secrets by Penny Joelson. I haven't read a book like it. I got sent it by Egmont Press and I'm very thankful because it's made me think about a lot of things. It centres around Gemma, who's quadriplegic and cannot speak. She has cerebral palsy, and it highlights how just because you're in a wheelchair or just because you can't move or communicate, it doesn't mean that your brain isn't intact and you can't think. This book brought up many issues for me. It was uncomfortable reading at times actually. Psychological abuse that people who can't communicate may suffer from, and how important it is that that is looked out for as much as physical abuse. And I think it's an important point that just because somebody has a disability and can't speak, it doesn't mean that they don't have things to say. So making choices: do you want ketchup with your chips? Do you want a drink? You have a headache but you can't tell someone. And it upsets me because even before I used a wheelchair myself, I was very aware that there was people out there who couldn't communicate their wishes, and for whom communication systems weren't working yet. And talking to someone in a wheelchair like they don't understand, I think, is one of the worst things you can do. Until you know otherwise, always speak to someone as though they understand and as though they are their age. It really troubles me that there are people out there who get spoken to in such a way that they're patronised, basically. In this book, she has an incredible mother, and I felt a real affinity to her there because her family were doing everything for her, and I think it was interesting that she was noticing things such as her mum had dropped something but she couldn't tell her that it was there, and she could have prevented certain things from happening. And it just highlights how just because you can't speak, there is always something to say and there's always something to have an opinion on. I think we take having a voice as for granted. Being able to type something or being able to say something, and I think it's very important that we read books like this that make us realise actually when people are discussing benefit cuts or social care changes, there are a lot of people that don't have opinions because they can't give their opinion, but they are living with this every day. Another thing I think I got from this book is I think we should treat disabled people as you would want to be treated. In here, her carer was painting her nails and she painted Gemma's nails. Now, things like that are hugely important. Just because you can't speak does not mean that you don't want to do things. I loved how this book talked about how her life was not doom and gloom. I think people would assume if you were trapped in a wheelchair and could not speak that your life is awful, it's terrible, and actually Gemma is pretty happy. She's frustrated but she's happy. This book focuses around Gemma, who is a disabled 14-year-old girl, and people tell her secrets because they know she cannot tell other people, and I think this book is fabulous. I would definitely give it a read. It's an emotional read. I was very emotional reading it. I don't know if that's because I've become disabled and I realised how horrific her situation must be. My situation compared to this young woman's situation, it is fiction by the way, but compared to her situation, my situation is nothing. It goes through her daily routines and something big happens in the plot and she could help to solve this thing and cast light on what's happened, but can't because she can't communicate. There are also other twists in it which I loved. It doesn't just focus on her inability to speak and her disability, it focuses on everyday family issues as well, which I really enjoyed. I'd like to thank Egmont Press once again for sending me this book. I did request it, so thank you very much to them. It completely got me thinking. I can't get it out of my head now.